Good morning, security gang, and welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in this morning. My name is James Azar. I'm the host and Chief Information Security Officer, a full-time cybersecurity practitioner. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 977 of the show. September 10th, 2025. We've got a packed show for all y'all. Yesterday was that one day a month where everyone decides that we're going to just post all of our vulnerabilities simultaneously out there for everyone to see. And maybe that way we can fix cyber. Not the best idea on the planet, but nonetheless, Patch Tuesday. We'll get into all of the Patch Tuesday news, everything you need to know, including additional news, including Cyber Director Sean Cranecross finally breaking silence after his confirmation at the Billington Cybersecurity Summit. We'll get into what he said there on today's show and what does that mean for practitioners all around us, and is there a shift happening in Trump 2.0 around cyber? All of that and more in just a minute. Before we get started, though, I've got my double espresso this morning. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Y'all don't mind another sip. When it's good, when it's this good, when espresso is just like at the right temperature, it's perfect. I know I always talk about coffee, but it's good. It's amazing. All right. We'll kick off with Microsoft patching 81 flaws, including 2 publicly disclosed 0 days. This patch Tuesday also fixed 9 critical vulnerabilities, 5 of which were remote code execution vulnerabilities. 1 was information disclosure, and 2 are elevation of privileges. All in all, out of the 81, 41 were elevation of privilege vulnerabilities, 22 were remote code execution, 16 information disclosure, 3 denial of service vulnerabilities, 2 security feature bypass, and 1 spoofing vulnerability, and a partridge in a pear tree. Are y'all ready for Christmas music? It's a month away. It's a month away. So there's 2 publicly disclosed 0 days. If you're smiling because I just said that and it just like resonated to you that after Halloween, that's it. We're in Christmas music until December 28th. Good luck. All right. CVE 2025-55234 is a Windows SMB elevation of privilege vulnerability that was fixed. This is a publicly disclosed 0 day and does have some exploits. So Microsoft says that the SMB server might be susceptible to relay attacks depending on its configuration. Again, it's really critical to read the configuration settings for this specific 0 day because it doesn't impact all. And finally, CVE 2024-21907 coming from Vone Check, improper handling of exceptional conditions in the newtownsoft.json. Microsoft fixing this known vulnerability that is included as part of the Microsoft SQL server. This specific vulnerability addresses a mishandling of exceptional conditions vulnerability in the newtonsoft.json before versions 13.0.1. The crafted data that is passed to the JSON convert.deserialize object method may trigger a Stack Overflow exception, resulting in denial of service. This flaw was publicly disclosed in 2024. Adobe patching nearly 24 different vulnerabilities across 9 of its product sets in its Patch Tuesday. The critical Cold Fusion vulnerability CVE 2025-54261 has a CVSS score of 9.0. It's been described as a path traversal issue that could lead to arbitrary file system write. It impacts Cold Fusion 2021, 2023, and 2025 on all of its platforms. Adobe says they're not aware of any in-the-wild exploitation. But the more recent Cold Fusion vulnerability, CVE 2024-20767, that one was reported as being exploited back in December after being reported in March of 2024. The most critical vulnerability fixed in Commerce as well as Magento open source is CVE 2025-54236, which could be exploited by an unauthenticated attacker to bypass a security feature. Magento vulnerabilities are also often exploited in the wild. So this is the SessionReaper vulnerability that we kind of started talking about, but we didn't really go into it. It could lead to account takeover. It could lead to an unauthenticated remote code execution under certain conditions. And again, this does impact Magento, e-commerce, so you definitely want to patch this one up. Adobe also patched high severity vulnerabilities in Reader, Premiere Pro, Substance 3D Viewer, Experience Manager, Dreamweaver, and Substance 3D Modular. So you want to make sure you get those patched up ASAP. Speaking of ASAP, we'll go to SAP. I did not plan that. That's not scripted. 21 new vulnerabilities impacting its products, including the critical severity issues impacting NetWeaver software solution. The SAP NetWeaver is the foundation for SAP's business apps like ERP, CRM, SRM, and CSM, and acts as a modular middleware that's broadly deployed in large enterprise networks. In its security bulletin, SAP said that software lists a vulnerability with a maximum severity security score of 10 out of 10. It's already been assigned a CVE, that's 2025 42944. It's an insecure deserialization vulnerability in SAP NetWeaver RMIP4 and Server Core 7.50. It would require an unauthenticated attacker to exploit it by achieving arbitrary OS command execution by sending an open port, a malicious Java object through the RMIP4 module, which is the remote method eviction protocol used by SAP NetWeaver AS Java for internal SAP to SAP communication or for administration. According to the bulletin, the second flaw fixed within SAP this month is CV 2025 42922. This one has a CVSS score of 9.9 or an insecure file operation bug impacting, again, NetWeaver AS Java deploy web service. So you want to make sure you get these patched up. They also addressed additional CVEs. All of these are 2025 42933, 42929, and 42916. Those impact the SAP Business One SLD, the SLT replication server, and the S4 HANA. You want to make sure you get those patched up. Ivanti resolved 2 high-severity, insufficient file name validation issues in their endpoint manager that could be exploited remotely and without authentication, execute arbitrary code. The exploitation of both defects, however, does require user interaction. Additionally, the company announced patches for 5 high and 6 medium severity vulnerabilities in Connect Secure, Policy Secure, ZTA, and Neurons for secure access. If you're still an Ivanti shop, meaning you glute for punishment for whatever godforsaken reason that is, you want to make sure you get these patched up. The Chinese love Ivanti products. I mean, they love them, and it doesn't take more than 24 hours for them to have an exploit. Fortinet released fixes for a medium severity OS command injection bug in the 40 DDoS that could lead to code execution, and a medium severity path traversal flaw in 40 web leading to arbitrary file read. So you want to make sure you get those patched up. A slow patch Tuesday for 40. NVIDIA rolled out fixes for 1 high and 2 medium severity defects in the NV debug tool that could allow attackers to access privileged accounts, write files to restricted components, and even run code as a non-privileged user. The issue could be exploited for code execution, privilege escalation, denial of service, information disclosure, or data tampering. They were resolved in version 1.7.0. So neither of those vulnerabilities have been mentioned as exploited. For my friends in SCADA, Rockwell Automation publishing the highest number of new advisories dispatched Tuesday. The company releasing 8 new advisories, all of them covering high severity vulnerabilities found in the company's products. Maybe if they didn't write code in China, that would help a little bit. Rockwell fixed a sensitive data exposure issue in Factory Talk Analytics, Logix AI, and denial of service and code execution issues in Control Logix controllers. It also addressed the remote code execution vulnerability in Stratix, which are Cisco devices and memory corruption in 1783 NATR, an SSRF issue in Automation Thin Manager, and a remote code execution flaw in Factory Talk Optics, a data exposure issue in Factory Talk Activation Manager. So you want to get those addressed. Siemens publishing 7 new advisories, one with a CVSS score of 9.3, and it's a serious issue impacting semantic virtualization as a service and allows an attacker to access or even alter sensitive data. Another vulnerability with a critical severity rating impacts Siemens user management component, and it can be exploited for unauthenticated remote code execution or denial of service attacks. Schneider Electric publishing 2 new advisories dispatched Tuesday. One of them covers 2 medium severity OS command injection issues in Cital DR and Cital DP RTU products. The second advisory is informing customers about a cross-site scripting flaw in their Altiver products. Phoenix Contact publishing 2 new advisories, one for 2 vulnerabilities in the JQ JSON processor used by FLM Guard, and 1 vulnerability induced by the use of Weibo Code Meter Runtime. Honeywell publishing several advisories for building management products, including Max Pro and ProWatch NVR and VMS products. CISA published 9 new and 5 updated advisories. Of the new advisories, a vast cover Rockwell Automation, because guess what? They write code in China. So there's that. And remember, China law says vulnerabilities discovered in China have to report it to the Chinese first, and only then will China allow you to release them to someone else. So just keep that in mind, folks. All right, we'll move to Cyber Command and NSA finally getting some level of calm there. The decision to maintain the dual hat leadership for both appears to have been made without any official White House documentation like a presidential memo, but it seems like President Trump has now warmed back to the idea of keeping Cyber Command and NSA directors kind of separating the two instead of separating them, which was kind of a plan early on. Well, he never really said it. People in the administration talked about it. However, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and DNI Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who also serves as the National Security Advisor, have all reached the same conclusion that it's better to have one head running both so that it does just that. And that's a good thing there. So some stability there. New Cyber Director Sean Cranecross speaking at the Billington Cybersecurity Summit in Washington, D.C., talking about President Trump's first order principles, putting America first. The cyber strategic environment is no exception, bringing the America First vision to cyber. In his first major policy address since confirmation, he rattled off some of the digital dangers from ransomware attacks to espionage to pre-positioning in critical infrastructure and influence campaigns, saying while the U.S. has improved at identifying, responding, and remediating threats, we still lack strategic coherence and direction. 100% correct. Today, he asked to seek your engagement and your help together by putting American citizens first, by putting American companies first, and we'll put America first, and that's the point. Our way of life, our day-to-day depends on an open and secure cyberspace. The White House Office of National Director was created by Congress in 2021 to coordinate cybersecurity efforts between various government entities, develop and implement a national cybersecurity policy, and advise the president on critical cyber issues. So Karen Cross here definitely taking this on. So we'll look forward to see what that strategy looks like. If you missed Apple's big announcement yesterday, there's apparently now an iPhone Air because, God forbid, current iPhones are too large for some people, that they needed a smaller version. But nonetheless, really, we're not going to get into everything new outside of this new feature called Memory Integrity Enforcement, which says it provides always-on memory safety protection to help safeguard devices against spyware attacks. Apple pointed out that while its OS operating system has not been hit by widespread malware attacks, iPhones are targeted by well-resourced threat actors like spyware vendors. So this new MIA protection aims to make exploitation of such flaws significantly more difficult. I'm sure it'll find a way around it, but it's a tit-for-tat game there. A threat actor is targeting your exposed Docker APIs and it has updated its malicious tooling with more dangerous functionality that could lay the foundation to your Docker APIs becoming part of a complex botnet. This activity was first reported by Trend Micro in June, whose researchers analyzed scripts and malicious codes that dropped a crypto miner and relied on the Tor network to hide their identity. Akamai researchers also adding that they discovered new tooling that does not deploy a miner, but a more complex payload that could block access to compromised Docker APIs. The attackers searched for exposed Docker APIs that support 2375 on vulnerable host and send a container creation request using a modified Alpine Linux image that includes a base64 encoded shell command. The container executes the decoded shell command, which installs a curl and a Tor, launches a Tor daemon in the background, and waits for the confirmation of the connection by accessing Amazon's checkip.amazonaws.com service over a SOC S5 proxy. Once Tor is active, the container downloads and executes a second stage shell script from a Tor hidden service using curl. It then writes a base64 encoded cron job on the host, which executes every minute and blocks external access to port 2375 using whichever firewall utility is available. So something you want to make sure to get addressed here. Akamai's Discover shows this evolution, and this suggests potential future expansion opportunities for credential theft, browser session hijacking, remote file download, and even denial of service attacks. So you want to make sure you shut down that port. The U.S. on Tuesday announced a reward of up to $10 million for information on the Ukrainian national indicted for his role in administrating the Locker Goga, Mega Cortex, and the Nephilim ransomware families. The Ukrainian individual by the name of Vladimir Viktorovich Timovichik, also known as Boba, Dead Fours, or Far Network, an MSVF, is 28 years old and is compromising of networks of hundreds of organizations in the U.S. And abroad. According to a May 2024 superseding indictment that was unsealed on Tuesday, the intrusions caused hundreds of millions of dollars in losses, including costs related to remediation, damage cost to computers, and ransom payments. The ransomware executable, the indictment alleges, was customized for each victim so that the attackers could create decryption keys that would work only for a specific organization. Between July of 2019 and June of 2020, the indictment says Timachek and his co-conspirators hit over 250 organizations in the U.S. and hundreds more abroad with the Locker Goga and Mega Cortex ransomware, including entities in France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, and Switzerland. So he's now got a $10 million reward for information leading to his arrest and conviction. He's most likely hiding in Russia. So there's that. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, with the show. Tomorrow, obviously, marking September 11th, the 24-year anniversary of those devastating attacks on the great city of New York in the United States, including the Pentagon. A day that will always be in our memories for those of us who were alive and adult enough to remember 9/11 and the subsequent days. So we'll talk a little bit about that on tomorrow's show and all other cyber news as well. Until then, have a great rest of your day, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to go check out CyberHubPodcast.com for all the latest, including exclusive content there for the NPM thing. Yesterday, we had on Nitzan Ziv, the CEO of Ox, and we've got a resource page available at CyberHubPodcast.com if you're still dealing with that. Otherwise, thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.